Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhyaye bacha Patitanang pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Sri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma Bandho Mui Shavadhana Mate Bandho Mui Shavadhana Mate Jahara Prashade Bhai He Bhava Toriya Jai Krishna Prapti Hoy Jaha Hate Krishna Prapti Hoy Jaha Hate Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Koriya Aikya Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Koriya Aikya Arna Koriho Mane Asha Arna Koriho Mane Asha Shri Guru Charane Rati Eshe Uttamagati Jai Prashade Pure Sarva Asha Jai Prashade Pure Sarva Asha Chakudan Dilo Jai Janme Janme Prabhu Se Divya Gyan Hriday Prokashito Divya Gyan Hriday Prokashito Prema Bhakti Jaha Hoite Avidya Vinasha Jate Prema Bhakti Jaha Hoite Avidya Vinasha Jate Vede Gai Jahara Charito Vede Gai Jahara Charito Sri Guru Karun Sindhu Adam Janada Bandhu Sri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu Lokanath Lokera Jivan Prabhupada Lokera Jivan Haha Prabhu Koda Doya Deho More Padachaya Ebe Jas Gushrukri Bhuvan Dvipade Loila Sharan Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Koriya Aikya Arna Koriho Mane Asha Arna Koriho Mane Asha Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we may attain pure devotional service. I bow to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. For my only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from the lotus mouth of my spiritual master. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes, filling my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him, ecstatic prem, love of God emanates, and by him, ignorance is destroyed. Indeed, the Vedic scriptures sing of his sublime character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and Lord and master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto me. Give me the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread all over the three worlds. Welcome all of you on this Guru Poornima day, most auspicious, as we begin the Chaturmasya period. And tonight I'm going to read some verses. First on Vyasadeva. You see the picture behind me. Vyasadeva is narrating the Srimad Bhagavatam, and his assistant is Ganesh Ji, who wrote down everything. So, beginning now, first I must offer obeisances specifically to my spiritual master. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin iti namane. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane. Srila Prabhupada is a disciple of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, and he was instructed to come to the West and preach the message of Krishna. And Prabhupada's specific philosophy is there to destroy the two most dangerous philosophies, that of voidism and impersonalism. Let us begin with some verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam, helping us to understand who is Veda Vyas. Tatak saptadashe jata satvayatvam parasharat chakre veda toro shakha drisva pungsopa medasa. Thereafter, in the 17th incarnation of Godhead, Sri Vyasadeva appeared in the womb of Satyavati through Parashara Muni, and Vyas divided the one Veda into several branches and sub-branches, seeing that the people in general were less intelligent. Dwapare samnu prapte dritiye yuga paryaye jata parasharad yogi vasvyayang pla hare. When the second millennium overlapped the third, the great sage Vyasadeva was born to Parashara in the womb of Satyavati, the daughter of Vasu. So the following is what Prabhupada composed in a short description of Vyasadeva. And the title of this section is called Badarayana. Prabhupada writes, Vyasadeva is known as Krishna, Krishna Dvaipayana, Dvaipayana, Satyavati Sutta, Parasharya, Parasharatmaja, Badarayana, Veda Vyas, and other names. Vyasadeva was the son of Mahamuni Parashara in the womb of Satyavati prior to her betrothal with Maharaj Shantanu, the father of the great general, grandfather Bhishmadev. Vyasadeva is a powerful incarnation of Narayan, and Vyasadeva broadcasts the Vedic wisdom to the entire world. As such, Vyasadeva is offered respects before one chants the Vedic literature, especially the Puranas. Shukadeva Goswami was the son of Vyasadeva, and rishis like Vaishampayana were Vyasadeva's disciples for different branches of the Vedas. Vyasadeva is the author of the great epic Mahabharata and also the great transcendental literature Bhagavatam. The Brahma Sutras, or the Vedanta Sutras, or Badarayana Sutras, were compiled by Vyasadeva. Among sages, Vyasadeva is the most respected author by dint of his severe penances. When Vyasadeva wanted to record the great epic Mahabharata for the welfare of all people in this age of Kali, Vyasadeva was feeling the necessity of a powerful writer who could take up his dictation. By the order of Brahmaji, Sri Ganeshji took up the charge of noting down the dictation on the condition that Vyasadeva would not stop dictation for even a moment. Thus, the Mahabharata was compiled by the joint endeavor of Vyasadeva and Ganesh. And by the order of his mother Satyavati, who was later married to Maharaj Shantanu, and also by the request of Bhishmadev, the eldest son of Maharaj Shantanu, by his first wife, the Ganges, Vyasadeva begot 3 brilliant sons, whose names were Dhritarashtra, Pandu, and Vidura. The Mahabharata was compiled by Vyasadeva after the battle of Kurukshetra and after the death of all the heroes of the Mahabharata. It was first spoken in the royal assembly of Maharaj Janamejaya, son of Maharaj Parikshit. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So now there's more on Vyasadeva, and this is from the teachings of Lord Caitanya as found in the Caitanya Charitamrita. Lord Caitanya instructs, Vedanta philosophy consists of words spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana, in the form of Vyasadeva. The Brahma Sutra, compiled by Srila Vyasa, is as radiant as the sun. Srila Vyasadeva presented the Vedanta philosophy for the deliverance of the conditioned souls. The Vedic literatures composed by the omniscient Mahamuni Vyasadeva are evidence of all spiritual existence, and only through these revealed scriptures can all conditioned souls attain knowledge. After studying the 6 philosophical theses, Vyasadeva completely summarized them in the aphorisms of the Vedanta philosophy. And the purport of the Vedanta Sutra is very difficult for an ordinary person to understand. But out of his causeless mercy, Vyasadeva has personally explained the meaning. If the Vedanta Sutra is explained by Vyasadeva himself, who has composed it, then its original meaning can be understood by the people in general. And so, Vyasadeva collected whatever Vedic conclusions or in the 4 Vedas and 108 Upanishads, and placed them in the aphorisms of the Vedanta Sutra. In the Vedanta Sutra, the purport of all Vedic knowledge is explained, and in Srimad Bhagavatam, the same purport has been explained in 18,000 shlokas. Therefore, it is to be concluded that the Brahma Sutra is explained vividly in Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is accepted as the essence of all Vedic knowledge and Vedanta philosophy. Whoever tastes the transcendental mellow of Srimad Bhagavatam is never attracted to any other literature. So we have properly glorified Vyasadeva. Now this second part of my class is about Guru Tattva. And I've gone through and selected essential verses which will help us to understand who and what Guru is. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militang Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual master, who, with the torchlight of knowledge, has opened my eyes, which were blinded by the darkness of ignorance. Next is the opening shloka of the Gurvashtakam. Sangsara davanala lida loka tranaya karunya gana ganatvam praptasya kalyana gunarnavasya vande guru sri charanaravindam. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy. Just as a cloud pours water on a forest fire in order to extinguish it, so the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus seat of my spiritual master, who is certainly an ocean of auspicious qualities. Next are the statements of Krsnadas Kabiraj Goswami, the author of Sri Caitanya Charitamrita. Guru Krishna Rupa Hai Shastrera Pramane Guru Rupe Krishna Kripa Karena Bhakta Gane. According to the deliberate opinion of all revealed scriptures, the spiritual master is non-different from Krishna. For it is Lord Krishna, in the form of the spiritual master, who delivers his devotees. Next is a statement in the Uddhava Gita section of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Krishna is instructing Uddhava. Acharyang mang vijaniyan nava manyeta karhichit namartya buddhya suyeta sarva deva mayo guru. One should know the Acharya as my very self and never disrespect the Acharya in any way. One should not envy the Acharya, thinking him an ordinary man, for the Acharya is the representative of all the demigods. That last line is so important, I'm going to repeat it. Sarva Deva Mayo Guru. The Acharya is the representative of all the demigods. Next, Lord Caitanya is instructing Rupa Goswami and cites this very powerful verse. Brahmanda Brahmate Kona Bhagyavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Bij. According to their karma, all living entities are wandering throughout the entire universe. Some of them are being elevated to the upper planetary systems, and some are going down to the lower planetary systems. Out of many millions of wandering living entities, one who is very, very fortunate gets an opportunity to associate with a bona fide spiritual master by the grace of Krishna. And by the combined mercy of Krishna and the spiritual master, such a person receives the seed of the Bhakti Lata Bij, creeper of devotional service. Next, Lord Caitanya is instructing Sanatana Goswami. Krishna yadi kripa kare kona bhagyavane guru antaryame rupe shikaya apane. Krishna is situated in everyone's heart as Chaitya Guru, the spiritual master within. And when Krishna is kind to some fortunate conditioned soul, Krishna personally gives one's lessons how to progress in devotional service, instructing the person as the super soul within and the super soul without. Next is another statement from the Uddhava Gita, and this is Uddhava glorifying Krishna. O my Lord, transcendental poets and experts in spiritual science could not fully express their indebtedness to you, even if they were endowed with the prolonged lifetime of Lord Brahma. For you appear in two features, externally as the Acharya and internally as the Supersoul, just to deliver the embodied living being by directing one how to come to you. So in this first set of verses, I have tried to explain the position of Guru and the qualification of Guru and what is his function and what is his status. Yes, he's the external manifestation of Krishna in the heart. Now we go to this next part, and we're going to hear more about what it means to be Guru. Vacho vegam manasakroda vegam, jiva vegam, udora pasta vegam, etan vegan yo vishaheta dira, sarvam api mang prativingsa shishyat. A sober person who can tolerate the urge to speak, the mind's demands, the actions of anger, and the urges of the tongue, belly, and genitals, is qualified to make disciples all over the world. Next is from Srimad Bhagavatam. Tasmad gurung prapadyeta jigyasu shreya uttamam shabde parecha nishnatang brahmani upashamashrayam. Any person who seriously desires to achieve real happiness must seek out a bona fide spiritual master and take shelter of the spiritual master by means of initiation. The qualification of the spiritual master is that the spiritual master must have realized the conclusion of the scriptures by deliberation, and the spiritual master should be able to convince others of these conclusions. Such great personalities who have taken shelter of the Supreme Godhead, leaving aside all material considerations, are to be understood as bona fide. This is from the 5th canto of Bhagavatam, the teachings of Rishabdev to his sons. Guru na sasyat, svajano na sasyat, pita na sasyaj, janani na sasyat, daivang na tatsyan, na patishcha sasyan, na mochayadya, samupeta mrityum. One who cannot deliver the dependents from the path of repeated birth and death should never become spiritual master, father, husband, mother, or worshipable demigod. Next is from the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Tatra Bhagavatan Dharman Sikshet Guru Atma Daivata Atmaya Nuvritya Yais Tushyed Atma Atmado Hari. Accepting the spiritual master as one's life and soul and worshipable deity, the disciple should learn from the spiritual master the process of pure devotional service. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, who is the soul of all souls, is inclined to give himself to his pure devotees. Therefore, the disciple should learn from the spiritual master how to serve Krishna without duplicity, and in such a faithful and favorable way that the Supreme Lord, being satisfied, will offer his very self to the faithful disciple. Next, we have a very famous verse from Bhagavad Gita. Tad vidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tatvadarshanaha yajgyatva na purnarmoham evang yasyasi pandava yena bhutani asheshani draksyasyat manyato mai. My dear Arjuna, just try to learn the truth by approaching the spiritual master. Inquire from the spiritual master submissively and also render service unto him. Because the self-realized soul can impart real knowledge unto you, because the spiritual master has seen the truth. And when you have attained this real knowledge from the self-realized spiritual master, you will never again fall into illusion. For by this knowledge you will see that all living beings are but part of the Supreme, or in other words, they are mine. Here is a very important shloka from the Mundaka Upanishad, which we see Prabhupada quote many times in his books. Tad vijnanartang sa gunum eva bigachet samit pani srotriyang brahmanishtam. In order to learn the transcendental science, one must approach a bona fide spiritual master who is in disciplic succession and who is fixed in the absolute truth. This next shloka is one of my personal favorites that has helped me a lot and has given me great faith and great hope in progressing in the science of Krishna. It is from the Shvetashvatara Upanishad. Yasya deve para bhaktir yatha deve tatha gurau tasyaite katihita hiyarta prakashante mahatmanaha. Only unto those great souls who simultaneously have implicit faith in both Krishna and the spiritual master are all the imports of Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. So the reason why I find this verse very encouraging to me, because here is the key to unlocking, understanding this very advanced spiritual philosophy. It has nothing to do with your material situation. It has nothing to do with being a great scholar or having a big brain. No. That is not what's required. If you want to understand this transcendental science, here are the two things you need. Implicit faith in who? Krishna, that Krishna is God, and equal amount of faith in my spiritual master, who is the external manifestation of that same Krishna in my heart. If I have implicit faith in that, this verse is telling me everything will be revealed to me within. This reminds me, of course, of the famous incident in the Caitanya Charitamrita when Lord Caitanya was visiting the famous Ranganath temple in South India, a temple I visited and was a great experience visiting that temple. So Lord Caitanya saw this Brahman, and he had the Bhagavad Gita upside down, and he was illiterate, and he was trying to read Bhagavad Gita, but everyone could see this Brahman is illiterate. And others would make fun of him. Even his god brothers would make fun of him. But this Brahmana, nevertheless, every day was trying to read Bhagavad Gita. So when Lord Caitanya saw him, he said, "Yes, what are you doing, my dear Brahmana?" And the Brahmana said, "Oh, my Lord, my spiritual master has given the instruction that every day I must read Bhagavad Gita 18 chapters. But the problem is I'm illiterate. I don't understand the letters. But because my spiritual master has instructed, I'm simply trying. That's all I can do." Then Lord Caitanya said, "But I see that you are crying. Why is that?" "Oh, for you see, my Lord, as soon as I open the book and try to read the letters, a vision comes. I see Krishna, blackish, beautiful, and he's on the chariot instructing Arjuna. And I'm thinking, oh, how wonderful Krishna is, how merciful Krishna is, that he is delivering Arjuna from his illusion. So when I see this picture, I break down and cry out of ecstasy. And Krishna is looking so nice, blackish hue." When Lord Caitanya heard this, he embraced the Brahman and said, You are the real scholar of Bhagavad Gita. You have understood the import, and you have developed love of God." We continue now with verses on the subject matter of Guru Tattva. This is Lord Caitanya preaching to Sanatana Goswami. "Sarva desha kala dashaya janere kartavya guru pashe se bhakti prashtavya shrotavya." It is the duty of every man in every country, in every circumstance, and at all times to accept the bona fide spiritual master, question the spiritual master about devotional service, and listen to the spiritual master explain the process. So I find this verse instructive also, that we should not bother the spiritual master with material things. What does it say here? And question the spiritual master about devotional service. That is important. Not to bother him with my petty material life. No. Once I approach the spiritual master, I must question him about Krishna consciousness and learn the process. Next is a famous shloka from the Mahabharata. This was spoken by Dharmaraj, Yudhishthir. "Dharmasya tatvang nihitang guhayam mahajano yena gata sapanta." Indeed, it is very difficult to understand the secret of Krishna consciousness. But one who advances by the instruction of the previous acharyas and follows in the footsteps of the predecessors in the line of disciple succession will have success. This is from the Hari Bhakti Vilas. "Ato gurung pranamyaivang sarvasvang dinivedyacha grihniyad vaishnavang mantrang diksha purvang vidhanata." It is the duty of every human being to surrender to a bona fide spiritual master, giving the spiritual master everything, body, mind, and intelligence, one must take Vaishnav initiation from a spiritual master. Continuing the instructions of Lord Caitanya to Sanatana Goswami. Tate Krishna bhaje kare guru se vana maya jale chute paya Krishnera charan. If the conditioned soul engages in the service of the Lord and simultaneously carries out the orders of the spiritual master and serves the spiritual master, one can get out of the clutches of Maya and become eligible for shelter at Krishna's lotus feet. So this is also very, very instructive. Two things are required: engaging in the service of the Lord by the 9 processes of devotional service, and simultaneously carrying out the order of the spiritual master and serving the spiritual master. This is how to get out of the clutches of Maya. Here is another verse from the Hari Bhakti Vilas. Yata kanchanatang yati kangsyang rasa vidhanata tata diksha vidhanena dvijatvang jayate nrinam. As bell metal is turned to gold when mixed with mercury in an alchemical process, so one who is properly trained and initiated by a bona fide spiritual master immediately becomes a Brahmana. Famous verse from Caitanya Charitamrita, Lord Caitanya instructing the Kurma Brahmin in South India. Jare deka tare kaha Krishna upadesh amara agyaya guru hai tar e desh. Instruct everyone to follow the orders of Lord Sri Krishna as they are given in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. In this way become spiritual master and try to liberate everyone in this land. So all of us have been given the order by Lord Caitanya to also become spiritual master. And how to do that? Just repeat the instructions of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. If you do that, you are guru. Now we find a verse from the Caitanya Charitamrita. This is my final verse for today. And this is from the conversation between Ramananda Roy and Lord Caitanya. Kiba vipra kiba nyasi sudra kene noi ye Krishna tattva veta se guru hoy. Whether one is a Brahman, a sannyasi, or a Sudra, regardless of what one is, one can become spiritual master if one knows the science of Krishna. And we learned from Srila Prabhupada that he wants us to learn his books, Gita, Bhagavatam, Nectar of Devotion, teachings of Lord Caitanya. We are meant to study these books, become learned ourselves, and then to repeat the message. So before I go to questions and answers, I would like to bless you all by singing the Nasringa Prayers, which I nickname the insurance policy of the Krishna consciousness movement. This is for your benefit. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Praklada Klada Dayane. Hiranya Kashipur Vakshaha. Shila Tankana Kalaye. Ito Nrsinga Padato Nrsingho. Yato Yato Yami Tato Nrsingha. Bahir Nasringa Hridaye Nasringho Nrsingham Ading Sharanam Prapadye Nrsingham Adim Sharanam Prapadye Nrsingham Adim Sharanam Prapadye Nrsingham Adim Sharanam Prapadye Tavakara Kamalavare Nakam Adbhuta Sringam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanu Bringam Keshavadrita Narahadi Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Keshavadrita Nrsinga Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadish Jai Jagadish Jai Jagadisha Hare Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare 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 Hare. May Krishna bless you, protect you, and maintain you. Because many times we are accused by others, Hindu groups, oh, you ISKCON people, you don't worship the demigods. And my reply is, oh, yes, we do. By worshiping the founder Acharya, he is the sum total of all the demigods. And besides, you're very proud of worshiping demigods. You only worship a few. There are 33 trillion administrative demigods. What about those? You're not worshiping them, so don't argue with me that we don't worship demigods. We are worshiping all the demigods by worshiping Srila Prabhupada. Sarva Deva Mayo Guru. That's why I find it important. It helps me with preaching. Because first we have to understand what is function of demigods. First of all, they are Krishna's representatives. So that's the first order of business. They're not independent gods. They are servants of Krishna. Spiritual master does not claim himself to be God. He says, I am Supreme Personality, Servitor, Godhead. And not only that, the demigods, you recall, when Ram appeared, when Krishna appeared, Narayan, Lord Vishnu, told the demigods, I need you to assist me in my pastimes. In the case of Krishna, Krishna told the demigods through Brahmas that all of you take birth in the Yadu dynasty and assist me in my mission of Paritranaya Sadhunam Vinashayacha Duskritam. So they are Krishna's assistants. And we sing every morning, what is the spiritual master doing? He's assisting the gopis who are making different tasteful arrangements for the loving affairs of Radha Madhav. So, demigods are not independent gods. They are Krishna's representatives in the material world. To you, my friend. So, towards the end of Bhagavad Gita, what does Krishna say? Anyone who preaches the message of Bhagavad Gita is the most confidential servant, and there's no one more dear to me. So, no one more dear to Krishna than the preacher of Bhagavad Gita. So right there, it is confirmed. The spiritual master is one who preaches the message of Bhagavad Gita. It's not that I'm saying it. It's not that the Guru is saying. Krishna himself is saying, who is most confidential and dear? It's one who teaches the message of Bhagavad Gita. And again, we read several times, spiritual master is the external representation of Krishna in the heart. That means his position is most exalted. We sing every morning, Sakshad Harit Vena Nasamasta Sastraya Ruktastataba Yateva Sadbi Kintu Praboya Priya Evatasya Vande Guru Sri Charanara Vindam. So, Sakshad Harit, he has the same spiritual platform as Krishna. He's liberated. He's eternally liberated soul. And he, again, representative of Krishna in the heart. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, because I'm in your heart, I am your dearmost friend. Therefore, by axiomatic truth of A equals B and B equals C, A equals C, then the spiritual master is also your dearmost friend. Hare Krishna. I hope that... Okay, so there are different levels of faith. Lord Caitanya explains that the difference between the Kanishta Adhikari, Madhyama Adhikari, and Uttama Adhikari is the degree of faith. So when it says implicit faith, that means there's no more doubts. For instance, in my life, I read 6 chapters of Krishna book, and by the time Krishna killed Poornima, I closed the book and I said, I accept you, Krishna, as God. From that moment forward, I had no doubts about Krishna. Implicit means, so same way, one should not accept someone as spiritual master until one has implicit faith that this person is the true representative of Krishna in my heart. In all my years of preaching, I have never forced anyone about taking initiation, because the person himself has to come to that realization. And many times over my years of preaching, people have asked me, Prabhuji, who would you recommend? And I would say, You have to decide. You have to hear. You have to see. You have to make inquiries. Who there represents the person behind me in the picture? In ISKCON, the Guru represents Prabhupada. So the Guru has to be the person who represents Krishna in the heart. Until you find that person, no initiation. You must have no doubts about the person's character, no doubts about his ability to answer your questions, spiritual questions. Not, Gurudev, can you tell me what stock to invest in? That is not a proper question for the spiritual master. Spiritual questions. One must have implicit faith, equal amount of faith in Krishna. Yes, even Krishna says in the 15th chapter, the very first verse I memorized, that one who accepts me, Krishna, without doubting is the knower of everything. I just got a new bell, so I'm using it out for the first time. Yes, once you accept Krishna as God, you know everything that you need to know. And once you find a bona fide spiritual master, there should be no doubts. If there's any doubts, don't jump in. Make sure there's no more doubts about the spiritual master's qualities as a devotee and his knowledge. Hare Krishna. Well, first of all, the connection came about before actually seeing him. The connection began by reading his books and seeing his picture on the back of the books. And as I told you, after reading, not only did I decide that Krishna is God, but after reading that story of Poornima, I decided that I would give up my material career and dedicate this life to Prabhupada and ISKCON. So it was simultaneously commitment to Krishna and simultaneous to Prabhupada. The first time I saw Prabhupada, I realized, or my understanding or my sentiment was, that I have finally found the modern day Jesus. I was raised Christian, so I had been taught about Jesus all my life, and I knew many things. I had studied. But when I saw Prabhupada, my realization was, here is the modern Jesus. I was so happy seeing him and hearing him, and of course, taking prasad. Hare Krishna.